Hey everyone, welcome to the witching hour. Yes, we are counting down the days to Halloween. Yes, we are witches. Yes, this is our time of year. And yes, we have some new and fabulous faces with us today. So, what we are doing is looking at movies. Today's movie, a classic, Bell, Book, and Candle. I'm very excited to do this movie, but let me introduce everybody. My name is Patti Negri. I am one of your hosts. You might know me from here or from um, The Witching Hour, my regular podcast, or from Ghost Adventures or lots of other television shows, or from my school, University Magicus. Let me introduce our regular beautiful Heather. Introduce yourself.
Hi, I am Heather Greene. I am the author of Lights, Camera Witchcraft, the critical history of witches in American television and movies. I am also a journalist covering all things witchy and occult, as well as an editor at Llewellyn Worldwide, working with wonderful witchy and occult authors. And I'm also a member of this coven, and I'm really excited to be here talking about this movie as well.
Thank you. And a slightly familiar Tabitha.
Hello, happy Wednesday, witches. I am Tabitha Meadows, and I am a medium and psychic. And as usual, I am so happy to be here. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And our two new faces, let's move it all over to Thumper. Who are you, Thumper?
Hello, I am Thumper. I am a witch and a chaos magician and a Discordian and a relatively new author with Llewellyn.
Congratulations.
Who has suffered through many technical difficulties tonight, but hopefully they are resolved.
Welcome. Thank you for jumping in. Because Richard-Lael is under the weather. Courtney fell down. So we're going to send them lots of love. But before that, let's our last beautiful new person, dear friend, Kadrick Olson. Kadrick, introduce yourself.
Hey, it's good to be here. I'm Kadrick Olson, author of Runes for Transformation, and I am a shadow worker. I teach people how to get into the deep, dark, inner places so that they can bring light to those shadows, as well as I teach Norse mysticism, how to interact safely with the paranormal, and all sorts of fun, interesting things about reaching higher states of consciousness and higher states of being in the life you're living right now.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Thank you all for joining us. Jason is still off in Europe somewhere, having quite the vacation, I must say. It looks like the ultimate vacation, since we get to see pictures. I'm sure you guys do too. Sadly, Richard-Lael has got the crud. You know, he is not feeling well. And equally sadly, Courtney fell down. She slipped on something in her schoolroom. Those evil children.
She slipped on a kid?
We don't know. We don't know.
It's worse. It's something a kid does. Not supposed to do it where they did it, and she slipped.
Aw.
Yes.
Love
So
Courtney.
anyways, wish them well. We send them healing and love and good wishes. And you guys, if any of you are here, not hanging out in the bathroom, come say hi. But we do wish you all the best on this. So let's get to now. Richard-Lael usually does the synopsis, but we're just sharing each other's jobs today. So before we go, we know that today, besides almost Halloween, it's a very spooky day out there for other reasons. There is a hurricane coming in. So we have our beautiful coven candle, which Heather procured for us, and we're going to do a little ritual. So please join us. Go, Heather.
I'll light this so you guys can see. And I'm also lighting some dragon's blood incense over here, which I will show you in a second.
Thank
Patty?
you. That is beautiful. And I put together a little chant spell for everybody in the wake of bad weather wherever they are. So you guys can repeat this yourself if you want. And it's right here in the thing. So just make it however you want. I always say the three things. Maybe light a candle if appropriate, especially if you're in the dark. But winds may blow and skies may cry. But in this space, protection lies. Rain may fall and thunder roar. Keep us safe within this door. Earth below and sky above, wrap us in your boundless love. Let light surround, let shadows flee, safe from harm, so mote it be. So we wish everyone safety and protection in the wake of the storm and anywhere else they are. We're just sending you love and protection, and wrap yourself in Earth's beautiful magic and heaven's beautiful magic. And
So mote it be.
so mote it be. Yay. All right. Back to our beautiful movie for all of you who still have electricity. So in being Richard-Lael for our movie, Bell, Book and Candle, 1958. We've been wanting and planning and hoping to do this movie for a long time, and it finally came to streaming. So Richard-Lael usually does our synopsis, our unbiased synopsis, but instead we are passing it over to the beautiful Heather.
Yeah, so I'm going to do I cannot even match Richard-Lael's ability to do an unbiased synopsis. So I'm going to do it really quick and then skip to my part, but I'm going to give you a sense of what happens. Basically, there's this woman who's bored with her life, and it's Christmas Eve, and she's really bored with her life, and she doesn't know what she wants to do. She doesn't know how to get out of who she is and where she is. And she sees this cool guy that lives upstairs, and she says, well, maybe I'll seduce him. So she just seduces him, and her crazy aunt actually breaks into the apartment and messes with the phone and does all this kind of stuff first. And then he turns out to be a publisher, and I don't even know what, I can't even begin to do what Richard-Lael does. So he turns out to be a publisher, and he's going to publish this book about magic and witchcraft. And the guy thinks he knows all about it, but he's not a witch. And then he discovers that the woman, Gillian's brother, is a witch. So they devise to create this book all about witchcraft, and she doesn't want him to find out. So she thwarts that with magic, and then finally tells him and says, I'm a witch. I'm really a witch. He doesn't believe. Then he finally believes. And in the end, she realizes, wait a minute, it's not all a trick. I actually do love him. And she realizes she loves him, and she cries and she blushes and she does all the things witches can't do, and then falls in love with him. And Jimmy Stewart falls in love with her, and all the world is good.
And they live happily ever after.
And they live happily ever after. So that's the best I can do. And that is, like, I am so not doing a Richard-Lael job. So I apologize. I know you guys all miss the truly unbiased synopsis that Richard-Lael gives.
Sure.
So maybe I need to just go into my part and forget
your part. Yes.
Because we'll get to the story as it goes along, because there's so much to this movie that needs to be shared, and I think all of us will be able to share all of these things. So I'm going to do my part, which is the 5 things you need to know about the movie, which include the context of the movie. I always love to do that. Then we're going to talk about its original source material. Then the actors, we'll do a little bit on those because we have to. And then a little bit of the witchcraft in there, and then the giant allegory that a lot of people don't know about. So I'm going to start with context. This is 1958. This is golden era Hollywood. Hollywood was under their code, their censorship code. So there was lots of restrictions on what you could and could not show on screen. Which means the film is very codified in terms of, things that they could portray now. You won't see. You'll see long B-roll on during old Hollywood, you would see B-roll of like nature scenes when it was supposed to be scenes of lovemaking and stuff like that. So you have a lot of codification in here. It's very classic Hollywood. It's during melodramas were very popular at this time. Witchcraft was not restricted. You could show witchcraft on screen, but it could not be sexy that much, and it wasn't ever treated as real. So this was before witches were ever in horror movies. Witches were never in horror movies at this time. So this is very much a fantasy movie. Witchcraft is treated as kind of fun, not real, just kind of a fantasy what if kind of a thing. So it fit in the Hollywood scope. So that's the major piece of the context. The other piece of this context, and this really gets into the play, which is its origin material. So I'm going to go to 2 before I give this context piece, because we got to talk about that. So this was originally a play. Now you can see this dirty little actor's copy. This is actually the actor's audition if you were to do the play. My high school did it. So, and I was the stage manager. So here was my copy of the actual play. And I've had it all these years because I'm like that. So it was written by John Van Druten in the early 50s. It was written and it was on Broadway for, I think it ran for a year and a half. It was very successful. The play was written during the McCarthy era. And this is when we get to that context piece. The McCarthy era is the Red Scare. This was a moral panic that happened, if you don't know what it is, during the 50s, where everyone was afraid that the commies and the Russians were coming to get us. This was literally a giant fear, just like we have similar fears that are happening now, or the Satanic Panic. This was another moral panic that happened in the very conservative 1950s. And there's so much more to it than that. But this play was written during that. And you can tell it's written during that. And one of my favorite lines from this movie was when he says to her, well, what have you been up to? Something un-American? And she says, oh, no, very American. I think it's like old American. So
Early American.
Early American.
Early American. So she's referring to Salem, clearly, because they mentioned Massachusetts later on in the play or in the movie. But he says un-American. So when the play was first aired and when the movie came out, it would have been very, very current for them to hear the word un-American. What are you up to? Un-American activities? That was literally, to us today, would seem a little bit less. There would be less context to that. There would be less of a meaning that was powerful. Then it was way more powerful because the House of Un-American Activities had just happened, or was happening, or had been disbanded by the time the movie had come out. So this is the context this movie was made in, which is really interesting. And again, as I said, it was a play. It was successful. It was written by this, and I'm going to tell you a little bit more about this, the play, and the writer of the play a little bit in number 5. But that is how this movie got made. It was a successful Broadway play. I think it was Selznick had it, and then he sold it to Columbia, and Columbia made it, and pow, here you go. We have this very successful movie. It was not it was treated like it was going to be a blockbuster. It didn't turn out to be a blockbuster, but it has stood this test of time, and it is probably one of Jimmy Stewart's. Well, I love Jimmy Stewart. We'll get into that later. This is supposed to be unbiased. So let me go to number 3, to Jimmy Stewart. Whoa, we're going to talk about him. So everybody probably knows who Jimmy Stewart is, and if you've seen It's a Wonderful Life, that's where most people know him from if you're not a movie person. But he is absolutely phenomenal. He is in one of my favorite Hitchcock movies, Rear Window. He's in Rope and Vertigo. Actually, he's in one of my all-time favorite old movies, Philadelphia Story. And you have to look up the drunk scene in Philadelphia Story. And he is absolutely brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. He died in 1997. We also have Kim Novak. She was in Vertigo with Jimmy Stewart. She is... doesn't have as many credits to her name, but she's mostly known for the Hitchcock stuff is where people mostly know her from, if not this. Of course, then we have, and yes, and I do have the Kim Novak is actually still alive, which is she's in her late 90s, I think, at this point, and she's an artist as well. I think that's what she's doing nowadays. Jack Lemon. If you don't know him from this, you will recognize him from, he was in the fabulous movie The Apartment. He was phenomenal in Some Like It Hot with Marilyn Monroe. He was, of course, probably best known for his role in The Odd Couple with Walter Matthau. More recently, Grumpy Old Men. He's been in a ton of stuff, and he died in 2001. You have Hermione. I keep wanting to say Granger, but it's Jingle. She plays what's the name of her character in this one?
Mrs. DePass.
Mrs. DePass. And you'll recognize her. I just put her up in my 31 Days of Witch movies. She was also played a witch in a 1969 kids movie. She was in The Music Man. She was in Gigi. She was in just a ton of stuff. You recognize her from her voice. You have Elsa Lancaster, who is a ton of things. She was in Mary Poppins, Murder by Death. I have the list over here. She got her start as the Bride of Frankenstein in 1935. She died in 86. And then Ernie why can't I read my Ernie Ernie Kovacs. And he is, thank you, Ernie Kovacs, for some of my brain stopped there. And I mean, Ernie Kovacs, he died in 1962 in a car crash, unfortunately. His comedy style is often credited, credited as the inspiration to so many comedians today. He's been credited as an inspiration to Saturday Night Live. It's a sort of spontaneous kind of way that he does his stuff. He was credited as being an inspiration to Johnny Carson, to even Mystery Science Theater 3000. I mean, he was a powerhouse back then. It was a very short time that he was actually doing his shtick, but because of his early death. But he is another powerhouse, and people would have recognized him then, and he would have been a big draw. So this is a loaded cast, especially for the time, even if today younger people might not recognize some of them, except Jimmy Stewart. So that is next. Now, the witchcraft in this movie. So some people, obviously, this is fantasy. They're not doing anything that you might recognize, but it's not that far off. And I think there's some really interesting things. There's some codified things that are problematic in here. Of course, the link between her interest in anthropology and African sculpture and her being a witch is one of those things that is problematic. That's another conversation. But they do a lot of energy work. We talk about a Pyewacket is a symbol or is a character that comes out of the witch trials. The name supposedly a familiar, so there's a link. Someone did a little bit of research. Is it something we would practice? No. But it isn't that far off. I mean, some of the lessons, like the love potions, the love spell and stuff you see her doing is energy work. So it's not like fantasy like you see some other fantasies. And we can talk a little bit about that. But the key thing here in this one is witchcraft in this movie, similar to I Married a Witch, is very much tied to a woman's power. So we're talking about the allegory here is that she basically has to give up her freedom of who she is in order to be in love with someone, in order to get married, in order to express true womanhood, to blush as a symbol. So there's a big symbol of femininity here. There's a big symbol of female agency, very common to this period of time. So that's my feminist side of it. But there's another allegory, number 5, we're going to skip to now. So number 5 is the other allegory that a lot of people don't realize or know about, but is fascinating. So John Van Druten was a gay man in the 1950s and had to hide it. This movie is a giant allegory for what it was like for him to live in that life in New York at that time. He was from the UK. He may even have known about witchcraft from his upbringing. I do not know. I don't have evidence of that. But what I do know is that he moved to New York and he had to hide who he is. He had to hide his sexuality. and he had to live in Hollywood and Broadway and all the jobs he had in the closet, literally in that way. And so this play and a lot of the other works he did are discussions of what that's like without being overtly discussions. And this witchcraft here and witches here are an allegory for that community. The zodiac is an allegory for that community that was hidden. And so if you go back and watch it, once you know that, you can hear it in the actual text. When Queenie is sitting there and she says, sometimes I sit there and wonder what they know. I can't remember the exact line, what they would think if they knew.
What would you say if I told you I was a witch?
Something like that. She says, I sit there and think about what if they knew. Mm-hmm. And they say it a number of different times in different ways. Are you sure you're like us, or you're one of us, or there's a play throughout. So I urge you, if you didn't know that about it, go back and watch it again, because it's a totally different movie. Not a totally different movie, but a deeper movie, a more meaningful movie, not just fun and not just Jimmy Stewart and not just Kim Novak and not just witches and fun and Christmas. It is actually has a way deeper meaning, makes the movie more purposeful and important. So those are the 5 things that we need to know. So now I can shut up and we can hear about everybody else's experience with this movie.
Thank you so much. That was fabulous. And I did not know all of that. That is brilliant. Thank you, Heather. Who wants to go first? Tabitha?
Yeah.
No, wait, Tabitha. Oh, no.
I actually thought it was fun and refreshing to see a woman who was beautiful. She wasn't green. She was powerful, she was confident, and she lived alone at first. She didn't feel like she really needed a man, or she couldn't have a man because certain things, which is different from a lot of the other movies that we see. Namely, witches are usually portrayed as yucky, ugly beings, but this woman was, like I said, she's confident, she's sensual. There was even a scene where she was leaning across the back of the sofa, and she kind of had her body turned a bit, and she had this V in the back where you could see her bare back. And, for me, I'm thinking 1958, like, ooh, a little risque, you know what I mean? So I just really appreciated that about this film.
Perfect. Thank you. Thumper. Let's go to Thumper. Now, we'll talk about the movie. Then we want to talk about you, because you've done the play, correct?
Yes. I was in a very ambitious community theater production of the play, and I played Nikki. At this particular theater, they love doing kind of older plays and classics. And if there was a Jack Lemon role, then I ended up in the Jack Lemon role. So I got to be Nikki. And the movie itself is one of my all-time favorites. It's one of my comfort films. I've seen it 15,000 times. But I really loved that Heather talked about the allegory of the movie, because the movie is sanitized in a lot of ways. The allegory is still there. In the play, I don't know how people didn't catch it, because it's a much smaller cast. It's just 5 characters, but especially Queenie has all these lines where it's similar to what Heather was saying about, she looks at the people around her and she says, what would they think if I told them I was a witch? And they just wouldn't believe it. They wouldn't believe that could be me. But later in the play, she's like, I'm moving out. I was in a women's restroom and the lady next to me had some pamphlets fall out of her purse, and it turns out she's into it. So I'm moving into a commune with her. And like, Queenie was off to the Women's Music Festival. But every line in the play is just sort of dripping with this, and it's very thinly veiled. And I really appreciate how John Van Druten did that, because most audiences would go, "Oh, they're witches. How exotic." But anybody who was of the LGBTQ community in the audience would go, "Oh, wow, this is about me. I get this." And it was very liberating in a lot of ways, to have something that mainstream audiences could appreciate and a standard Broadway audience could appreciate, but that was also very, very subversive. So that's what I got out of it. I get very excited about this movie.
Thank you. I do too. Kadrick.
Hey. I have to admit, I've never seen it. This is interesting for me. I'm learning all sorts of things.
Okay. Well, then we won't ask you, but we appreciate you being here anytime. I'm going to go to the simple side of things. I want every dang outfit that Kim Novak wore.
Seriously? Yes.
Every outfit. Talk about fashion icon. The cloak. I mean, witchy, but high fashion. And she would. She is sexy and beautiful and smart and intelligent as any movie star, any idol, anybody I had ever seen. I don't remember seeing it when I was young, but I would have wanted to be a witch and wanted to be her right then and there, period. That period.
I thought it was interesting too, speaking of her costuming, that at different points in time, they would have different colors on her. Like when she was in love, they had red on her. When she was doing something a little mischievous, they had black on her. And by the end, she was kind of in this white or a cream outfit. And I thought that was very well done as well.
Yeah.
And let me speak to that, because I was going to bring that up as well. Is the costumes for the most part for the beginning were sexier. They were black, they were red. They were very much tied to the idea of witchcraft for the audience. They had to make her look a little dangerous. So they use those colors. When she falls in love towards the end, when she decides, nope, I'm going to be humdrum, which is her word for it. She wants to celebrate Christmas and be humdrum. That's a cue. That's a codification again for being normal and not being dangerous. This all plays into the way witchcraft was represented at this time. You were allowed to do it for a period of time, and then you had to tie in and you had to become humdrum. You had to play into the rules of the patriarchy. Her clothes become less dramatic. They become less sexy. The collars get higher. She doesn't have her back anymore. The colors are no longer black and red, which is why I wore my black and red for her.
I noticed.
Yeah, so she that is one of the ways Hollywood tells you, and I actually do a workshop on this. It's one of the ways Hollywood tells you whether a woman is dangerous or not at the time. And during the coded period of time, women were not allowed. It is actually written into the Hollywood censorship code about what a woman can wear and can't wear. And so they push the limit a little bit with that V back. That's that's pushing the limit for it. But that was to define her as dangerous. And so then they pull back okay, we can allow it as long as the movie corrects for that and it ends the movie showing that was not the way to behave and that women should behave this way. Remember, this was a conservative time. But it's what's really super interesting, and I just lost my train of thought. Oh, I know what Tabitha was saying about her being so beautiful, and what Patti, you said about her being so beautiful, and you want to be a witch like that. And I talk about my book about the subversive readings. The movie's supposed to be telling us what women are supposed to be telling us, are supposed to be telling women, this is fun for a while. This is the dangerous woman. Now you have to play by the rules, and this is how you do it. This is how you're going to cry and blush and all this stuff and get your man and all. Okay. But a lot of women read exactly what you did, Tabitha and Patti and myself, where we go, no, we like the other one better. which is why witches have changed over the years, and now we see those as the heroes. But it's really fascinating because that's exactly, a lot of women said, no, I like the Kim Novak in the black and red way better.
Yeah, no, and when she got all good and she lost her powers in that horrible little white dress. I mean, it's
vanilla.
Horrible little white dress.
Can I quickly tell you all what our director did with that, with the end?
Mm-hmm.
So the idea is that, like we've been talking about, is that she gives up all the witchcraft and the bad girl image to being normal and be in love, and that means she can only be human now, but that's what she wants. She wants to be normal. Our director, our blessedly heterosexual director, didn't quite catch that. And he was like, well, at the end, she's happy. And the whole thing was a psychological block, so she gets her powers back. And we were like, what? And so he had this whole idea where when she walked on stage, she snapped to turn the Christmas lights on. She cast a spell.
Oh,
and there was a scene where later when she tries to do it and realizes she's lost her power. And then at the end, when they have the kiss and she says, I'm only human. And she has this moment and she kind of realization and she snaps her fingers and the Christmas lights come on and the house lights go down.
well, what she should have done is wrinkle her nose.
That would have been better.
Because I've always said that Bewitched is part 2 of this movie. That's
It
what happened
absolutely
after
is.
the wedding.
It absolutely is. But that was his take, that she shouldn't have to give it up. That she thought she had to give it up. In reality, she doesn't.
Yeah,
And I always
he didn't want her
appreciate
to
that.
give it up. He didn't want her to give it up.
Yeah.
I just love the sensibilities of it all. Like, ooh, bare feet. That must be naked. Bare toes. This is
Toes.
She showed her ankles.
Yeah. But yeah, it's one of totally my. Always forget to always say it's one of my favorite films, but it is totally one of my favorite films. Love Pyewacket. Love the cat. She's really good at carrying that cat around, and I don't know. It's just Jack Lemon was hysterical in it with his eyes and his his bongo playing, his drumming. I had the honor of seeing him literally almost moments before death. I was called to his house and work with him, and he's literally at his pre-death bed with the medicines by his side to do this little thing. And I've always been in love with him, and I was honored to do that. But to see him in his youth, in his heyday like this, was so funny. They must have had so much fun making this movie. I'm sure you guys had so much fun doing the play, because there's just something fun about the whole damn thing.
How'd you like playing Nikki? Was that super fun?
It was amazing. It was the reason this community theater did the show was because I kind of bullied them into it, and because I wanted to do it. Just the experience itself was wonderful. We had a lot of witchcraft books on set. One of our actors brought a bunch of old books to decorate with, so we had copies of first editions of Paul Hewson Mastering Witchcraft and What Witches Do on the shelves behind us. The high priestess of my coven brought her 8-year-old to see it, and to a matinee, and apparently he got very upset because I come on stage and start talking about how great it is to be a witch, and this poor little 8-year-old went, Mom, he's not allowed to say that. We talk about this. We don't talk about that in public. And he had this little meltdown in the audience because Uncle Thumper was just outing himself to a bunch of strangers. But overall, it was just it's a very there's an irreverency to Nikki that's a lot of fun to inhabit, where he understands that Gillian is trying to play by the rules, and he is not at all interested in that, and it acts as a really wonderful foil that way.
Oh, thanks. Anybody else have anything about the movie? Oh yeah, Siamese cat. We saw that Siamese cat, purebred. That was a good cat. If we're ready to move on, I am trying to fill in for Courtney. Not very well. I did jot down some quotes though, because I love the writing in this. I love the dialogue in this film. I can just repeat and repeat, because I'm not usually a quote girl, whatever I am. So I just wrote down a few. When Shepard Henderson said, that girl, Gillian Holroyd, she's one. A witch? Yes. Well, she never learned to spell. Merle said, are you trying to say you're jilting me? Oh, well, that's a very heavy word, Merle. It's a very heavy word. Let's just say we're uncoupling. That was a cute one. Or when Shepard said, hasn't this cat got anything better to do? Couldn't you go give him something to read? And get Jillian again. Oh, Pyewacket. What's the matter with me? Why do I feel this way? It's such a rut. The same old thing, day after day, same old people. I know I'm feeling sorry for myself, but it's true. Why don't you give me something for Christmas, Pye? Meow. I like. Meow. I'd like something different. I'd like to meet someone different. And then, well, back to Gillian. But what on earth are you doing, Pyewacket? Somebody gave him my address. Whatever it says. Okay. A couple more. When it's surprised that Gillian breaks down into tears, they're back together. How did it happen? It just happened. It does sometimes. No, it only happens one way. The story is that it only happens when you fall in love. And it's been happening to me too, Gil, ever since I walked in here. Only it's real this time. Oh, Shep. Oh, has this been the real all along? Who's to say what? That was so romantic. Oh, Gil, don't you want to stop crying now? I don't think I can. It's only human. I don't understand, Nikki. She's in love. I'd rather be dead. That's a good one. And the rest, nice having you over.
I've got one.
Okay, please.
This is the one I mentioned earlier. I actually have the quote. Queenie says, I sit in the subway sometimes on buses or the movies, and I look at the people next to me and I think, what would you say if I told you I was a witch? That's the one that's the very clear code of what, just sitting there thinking, what would you say if I said I was a witch?
Right.
That's the one I was trying to think of earlier. And I think that is it. And yeah, I already said the un-American one, so that's another one.
That's a good one. Doing something un-American, that really stood out to me as well.
Yeah, very American.
We'll catch her at El Morocco. She looks like she's been living in a pickle barrel. I don't even know what that means, but it was funny.
They also say something about theosophies early on. I think it's Queenie that mentions theosophy.
Yes, because
the theosophist, yeah.
The person who lived in the apartment before Shep was a theosophist.
That's right.
And he was very pleasant.
Yes.
right. When Nikki said, you know what it says on love potions? Shake well, but don't tell. Shake well, but don't tell.
My favorite line comes from Merle when Shep takes her to the Zodiac Club and she goes, "This is the scrabby end." And I just feel like that is such a vivid description of how she felt.
That's fantastic. It's such a good movie, and I think the writing is because it was a play written by a seasoned and celebrated playwright and writer, so it wasn't just thrown together. It's in these old movies, they tell stories so well without all the CGI, without trying too hard. And then when you get just really good actors, Jimmy Stewart, I know I keep saying how much I love Jimmy Stewart. If you watch some of the moments Jimmy Stewart does, he makes some of the movies without the words. He'll just all of a sudden he'll make a face. Like when he has Pyewacket near his shoulder and he's just like the face. I'm like, that to me is brilliant. I mean, I could watch him and he does this again. Someone put in the chat that they love old movies like this. I urge you to go to Philadelphia. Go to the movie Philadelphia Story. There's no witches in it. This is Katharine Hepburn, Cary Grant, and Jimmy Stewart. And look up the drunk scene in A Philadelphia Story, and you will see Jimmy Stewart at his best. C.K. Dexter Haven all the way. It is the funniest scene, and it shows you what a brilliant actor this man is. And you can see it in this movie when what does he fall on the ladder in this movie or something, where he goes up the ladder and then falls. I mean, just those subtle things that they can do that sometimes in modern movies are not appreciated anymore because there's so much CGI and there's so much going on. It's like, it's not just calm down and tell me the story and let the actors do their thing. Yeah. You see that here.
I agree.
There it is. Oh my God. That's the drunk scene right there. That's the drunk scene. And he is, oh my God, I'm laughing. I know exactly what he's saying in that movie, and I'm not going to say it because I'm holding my breath. I'm trying not to say what he's saying. It's so damn funny. Excuse me. It's so darn funny.
Can you
say it? Is one of the best. What?
Can you say it?
He's drunk. Jimmy Stewart's drunk, and he's saying, "C.K. Dexter Haven, C.K. Dexter Haven, can I have another one?" Okay, something like that. I can't even remember. He's just muttering. It's great. I urge, don't show that clip again because I might keep laughing. If you want to see Jimmy Stewart at his best, watch the drunk scene from Philadelphia Story. It's brilliant.
Okay, we will watch, even if it doesn't have witches. Oh
There's
wait,
no
I have
witches.
a couple witchy quotes too. Do you know what she's talking about the spell? Do you know what she used? Used head of toad, white vinegar, swallow's liver. She used a cat. A cat. And she used a cat. Very magic cat. I want that cat. Ring the bell, close the book, quench the candle. That's how they used to exercise them. Or when Gillian says, and that seems so damn sexy to me when she said, it's nice to have you over me. I mean, it's reassuring having a man around in case he's needed. Well, it wasn't that. He lived in the apartment over there. Okay. Anyway, I got a bunch, but that's it. So, anybody who hasn't seen this movie, Kadrick, you have to see. Anybody out there?
It is an amazing, just outside of witch films, it is an amazing golden era film, period.
And the clothes. Kim Novak's.
I do have it queued up on my Amazon, ready to watch. Crazy day today.
Yeah. And
Crazy
the
day.
Jazz Club, the Zodiac.
Oh,
That's not something I've seen represented in movies a lot. That whole, I don't know if that's beaten it or whatever it was, the witches of that secret thing. Just loved it.
that was sort of the I guess the time period that Heather was mentioning. You know, they couldn't come out and call them like the queer community, but they could call them beatniks. So the Zodiac Club, which would have been a gay club, was just this underground beatnik spoken word poetry spot, which is where we meet Mrs. DePass, who is not actually in the play. She is discussed heavily in the play, and she's very much a rival of Gillian's. We said Gillian because the director didn't like the name Gillian, so we changed it to Gillian. But it was really cool to see her in the movie just because she's sort of non-existent in the play.
Interesting. Was she in the original? You may have said this, but I missed it. Did the author of the play have anything to do with the movie?
I think he actually wrote the screenplay. I can't remember at the top of my head right now, but it's very close. There's not a whole lot of difference. The major differences are like adding the characters and the locales. The actual play only takes place in the living room. So if I remember correctly, isn't that right, Thumper? It's
Yes.
just the living room. So you don't see see DePass or any of the other characters. You only see Nikki, Gillian, Queenie, and the author and Shep. I think that's it. It's only
It's just the five of them.
Yeah. So
we never meet Merle, which is a shame.
Yeah, it's a totally different. It's just scaled down because it's just a Broadway single set play.
Yeah.
Oh, Thumper. When they were spelling, like in the movie, they'd have the characters turn like a color. It was from my perspective, it was like a blue color, like a blue wash went over them. How did they handle that in the play? How did they do something that you could tell that they were, sending out the vibes?
There's some of it's in the language and the writing where, like when at one point, it was actually Nikki in the play who keeps putting curses on Shep's phone. So I would pick up the phone and then just sort of like speak in guttural Latin and then end with his phone number and hang up. But what we did was for scenes like when Gillian cast the spell to summon the author, we had this big ashtray that she uses. It's a cauldron. It's clearly a cauldron. Even in the movie, she says, "Give me the ashtray," and it's a cauldron. We filled it with flash paper. So Gillian would light the match, and there'd be this huge explosion out of the cauldron. And we used that as an effect later on when she lost her powers. She was flinging matches into the ashtray, and nothing would happen.
Wow. I love flash paper.
We had a lot of fun with that.
We all love flash paper. And just take a little break. I want to see some of our people were losing along the way, not literally because of the storm. So again, sending everybody, Haley, popping in, extremely windy. She can only stay for a minute. I know it's getting close to Robert. So again, we are sending you so much love, so much good thoughts and write down a little chant. He wrote it down. Make up your own. It's fine. It's just words, and rhyming helps, but not necessary. Create that intent, and then find the safe place in your house. You have to help the magic along sometimes.
Yes.
You do have to help the magic along sometimes.
Yeah. The follow through is very important.
Yes.
Very fine. So now, usually, I didn't hear that we got one, so we don't have a Mankey moment. He's too far away in the Netherlands.
Oh.
No Mankey minute. This would have been a good one too. We're gonna have to make him do catch up and do it for.
Well, I know that he told me, I was having a conversation before he left, and he sent me a message, and he said that this was an amazing film. So he did text me that. So I know that he loved the film. So I'm going to have ones up for Jason. He's going to have ones up just because he let me know that this was an amazing film. And he did say that there's a lot of good displays of magic and witchcraft in it. And that's all I got as he whisked away off into his whirlwind tour of Europe. So that's all I have.
Right. That is good. And I love how they showed the little apothecary shop and the herbs, and he's holding up that squished turtle. I didn't quite get the squished turtle thing. It's like, is that a part of witchcraft that I have not read that book on? A flattened out turtle. I don't know.
I liked all the little audible noises they made too when she was like mixing or something was bubbling. That was pretty cool too.
Yeah, that was funny. That was really good. Yes, we will have Colin Yours work. He's going to have to do a Mankey movie minute marathon. Every film that he's done pretty good while being gone, because he is on quite the trip. We do still have a little bit of time left. What do you guys want to talk about? Halloween is here, we have Halloween. And if you guys haven't seen it, look at Heather's 31 days of witches. So tell us about that, Heather, because everybody here should go see that.
Well, I do it. I've been doing it for, I don't know, for 4 or 5 years now. I do 31 days of witch movies, and I do it from obviously October 1st through the 31st. And every year has a different theme. So this year's theme is actors. So I'm doing 31 actors that play witches. So I started out with Margaret Hamilton because I had just gotten back from Charlotte. So I'm like, okay, I'm doing Margaret Hamilton. So I did her, and I did Elizabeth Montgomery already, Patti. So just for you. And I've done a bunch of others. I already did Kim Novak. That was last week. I did Diane Carroll from Eve's Bayou. A lot of the actors you'll recognize from movies we've done. And I did today, just because we were doing this movie, I came back to Bell Book and Candle, and I did what's her name? Hermione, not Granger, Hermione Gingold. And she was in, and I could just add this, is she was in this, obviously this movie is a witch. And she was also in a movie called Winter of the Witch. It was a children's movie, 1969, probably only on television. And you can actually look at it. I think YouTube might have it. Look it up. But it's a really kind of interesting, and I may have mentioned it before. It's an interesting kids movie about a witch who is in a haunted house. And this mom and her son move into the haunted house. And the little boy discovers there's a witch in the attic. And she's really upset because there's no point to her anymore. She has no purpose. People used to be scared of witches, but now the world is crazy because this is 1969 and nobody's scared of anything anymore. So she has no job anymore. So she's really down and out and depressed and doesn't know what to do with herself. And he's moping in the attic. And she starts making pancakes for him one morning, and they make him really happy. And he realizes, well, you make pancakes really well. And she gives them to some disgruntled door knockers from the women's club who show up and they're grumpy. She gives them pancakes and they get happy and they leave and they're all happy and giddy. So he says, this is your new job. You can make pancakes, blueberry pancakes, and make everybody happy. So this is all about the witch who makes blueberry pancakes and finds a new job for her witchcraft.
Oh.
There's no allegory in that in 1969, making people happy with blueberry pancakes. I'm just going to say, we'll leave that as you want to take it. But she was Hermione was the actual witch in that movie as well. So that's who I have up there today. And I'll do it every day from now until Halloween on my major socials, Threads, Facebook, Instagram. So I'll have one every day for you to look at a new witch.
And they're fabulous. Yeah.
I have a question for
right.
Edric. Since you were the one who has not seen this movie, what are you looking forward to?
Oh.
I like seeing how the cultures change over the years, what our opinion is of different takes on things. Like you guys were mentioning that theosophical reference at the beginning that captures my attention. So I want to see that, but I look for the cultural cues, like what Heather, what you were talking about, how witches weren't the evil, terrible, awful things. It was more of a fantasy thing, because I like to see the shift in the way our minds think and the way our minds approach things. So to me, that's the part that I want to find out. I want to see what goes on. I don't know how else to describe it better than that, but I like to see the cultural shift from where we were then to where we are now.
Well, then you have to read my book.
That's
exactly what it's about.
I do have your book in my library. I admit that.
Oh, thank you.
Yes.
I appreciate that. That's cool. They are interesting, though, in everything. That's very fascinating, definitely.
Because I do like looking at like paranormal movies that are based on true stories, uncovering the true story, and then my experience with the paranormal over my lifetime and the things I teach people how to coexist with the paranormal. So I like to see those little factors of truth that's in the movie, what they get completely wrong, and then how we can adapt it and use it in our lives. So I do like to look at movies in that way.
Mm-hmm. Fascinating.
Thank you so much. I don't know if we're up to voting yet. Perhaps we actually are. Then I want to talk about everybody, what they've got going on, to get to know the new people and things like that. We've got all sorts of stuff going on. But before we do that, and we want all of you beautiful people who are jumping in, wands up for wands down on bell, book, and candle. Up, up, up.
Oh, this is for Jason. He's going way up too. I'm voting for him because he told me on text. He has no choice.
Okay, we are up. We are up. This is a unanimous up across the way. Everybody out there that still has electricity, jump in. Wands up and horns up from Kelvin. Wands up. And again, I don't know if Courtney's out there or Richard-Lael is out there. We don't think Jason's out there, but we wish you well. So not just to borrow and shuck it up. Wands up. 1958 is a special year to you. 58, flying year. No question about it. Wands up. Up, up. This may be.
Oh, wait a minute.
Wands up for Kadrick's voice.
Thank you.
Yes. Way up.
Indeed. Always. For a movie that ditched the stereotypes. Yeah. Ditched the stereotype. I just want her wardrobe. So anyway, we've got. What are we watching next week, Heather?
We're watching. It's for your birthday celebration. We are watching Bewitched, the movie.
You better watch
it.
You better watch it.
I have seen that one. I'm familiar with that one.
I'm sorry.
Yes, it should be quite the discussion, I am sure. Wands up all around, I am sure. Maybe
except for that it started out at Christmas time, and I was thinking, wow, the things that you do for the coven and love, because I have a hard fast rule: no Christmas movies until after Samhain or Halloween.
You're talking about this one? This
Yeah.
movie? Yeah, you know, that's the question, Tabitha. Is this you see, I always wanted to do it for I always wanted to put it on the schedule for us for Christmas, but it's never streaming them because it's a witch. So is it a witch movie or is it a Christmas movie?
That's my one beef with the movie is Gillian talking about how she just wants to be in a little church somewhere listening to carols instead of bongo drums, and she just can't get into Christmas and she doesn't understand it, while she has the most amazing like pop art constructed Christmas tree It's made out of concentric rings in the middle of her shop. It's the coolest Christmas tree ever, and she's like, Christmas, eh. That's
I
the one
know.
part where I can't suspend.
Water was amazing. Everything
Yeah.
about it was amazing.
And a lot of people are doing that type of Christmas tree now, and you know, everything old is new again, and you think you're doing something new and fresh, but you know, somewhere out there is probably
It's been
already done.
It's all been done.
I'm just the end thought about that is I wonder if these newfangled Christmas trees that you're talking about can actually be inhabited by a dead spirit that wants to kill people, because then we're gonna, if they can't be, then we don't have the killing tree, and that movie is sacred here. So if
We'll
I
just
have
add
found my
boots.
people. I have found my people. One of us.
It needed boots. It needed
Just
can
add
that
boots.
turn into a killing tree? That's my only question. I'm doing that for Courtney. Courtney, if you're listening, I'm asking that question for you.
Happy birthday to Christy's daughter, whose birthday is on the 24th. We'll do the movie for her too. She could have Bewitched, just like me. Okay, anybody have we have a couple more minutes. Anybody have anything they want to talk about they have coming up that people could see or tune into or go see you or anything like that? Kadrick.
Well, right now, I have definitely got an interesting 12-week program working with star seeds and shadow work for star seeds, as well as later this month, I will be doing something for shadow work with runes. I've got that coming up. So definitely kind of stay tuned to that. You know, check out me on Facebook, Instagram. I'll be posting links how to get tuned into that one. But I've got lots of stuff I'm working on.
Yay, good. Thank you. Thumper.
My next scheduled appearance is actually not until May, but I will be at Austin Witch Fest teaching on Lismantic divination. And then I have got a blog called Fivefold Law and Patheos Pagan, which I'm a little behind with because I had some other projects I was working on. But I have some new content coming out there. And I've got another book coming out sometime next year.
Yeah, congratulations.
Thank you.
Tabitha.
I am Tabitha Meadows, and you can find me on Facebook because I am a medium and psychic, and I can do private readings.
Perfect. Thank you. Heather.
I'm working with my authors right now and working on some articles as well, so that I'll announce those when they come out. But I will be doing something in Atlanta for Halloween on the 19th. If you're in around the North Metro area, I will have that announced on my socials. But we'll be doing with two other wonderful witches. We'll be hanging out at a Barnes & Noble in Marietta, Georgia for a couple hours, signing books and doing readings. So that'll be coming up here very shortly on the 19th.
Perfect. Thank you. For anybody, yes, this is my new book from the
Nice.
coming out. It'll be out in 2025. I'm so happy with it. Look at that beautiful cover. I had nothing to do with the cover. It's just great. If you're in the Southern California area, I'm going to be appearing Saturday on a Women in the Paranormal panel at the Orange County Paracon. It's right by Disneyland, ocparacon.com. Next weekend, I'll be in New Jersey at the Supernatural Soiree on a battleship in Camden, New Jersey, doing a midnight seance and a big blowout party put on by April Bissett and Ghosted Magazine. And then I'm heading for New Orleans because that's what you do at Halloween. On Halloween itself, I'm going to be doing a ritual with Bloody Mary, the Voodoo Queen and Bloody Mary. We're doing a lifting of the veil, Halloween, like 5, 6 o'clock. And then I'm heading over to our first of 4 vampire events at the House of Blues with Endless Night. And then I get busy. No. So again, follow us all on social media. You can find us all. PattiNegri.com. You can get to my legitimate social medias and things. If you're ever confused by which of the 72 fake Patti Negris are me, you can get there from there. And I want to thank you guys for all coming out here. All you people in the storm's wake, and I know the winds are blowing there. So Thank you. And let's come back next week. We have one more thing to do. And I love to have the new people do it with us because they should have cackled in the movie. That's all I can say. They did some weird stuff. They did some weird chants that I couldn't quite hear to make
Yeah.
We should have all brought our cats. If that's what we should have done. But on the count of 3, let's cackle. 1, 2, 3.